Hi, it's Wayne O'Keefe from howtofish.com.au. I'm fishing under the Westgate Bridge this morning in Port Melbourne, and it's about 5:45. I've just got here just as sort of daybreak was coming on. I got here early for two reasons. One is I want to catch the rising tide, and it's virtually peaked now. And the other thing is that the wind is going to pick up today, so and it's going to get quite windy. I don't know how long I'll have, a couple of hours probably, maybe less, to get those fish before it becomes a bit difficult to fish under heavy wind. So I will see how I can, what I can get out here today. As per usual, I'll have my burley, my bite hard burley, to attract the fish in. I'll be using burley cages on 2 rods. The burley cages are what the burley goes in to attract the fish. I've got fairly long quiver tip rods to be able to cast a distance out there, because it's fairly shallow until you get over into the shipping lane, which has been dredged and is very deep. So what happens is you've got an incline of the bank and then the shallow area, and it drops off. I want to just get on that edge of that drop off, and so you need to be able to cast a fair distance for that. I'll be using different types of baits today. I'll use my spicy chicken, which I use a lot if you've seen my videos. I'll be using prawn, I'll be using pippy, and I like to have a mixture just in case something doesn't work. Anyway, let's see how we go. That channel is very deep. If you fish underneath the Westgate Bridge on the Yarra River there, it's a shipping lane, and big ships come in. This is a container ship. It's absolutely full of containers, so it'll have its maximum balance and maximum weight there. And what it does is when it comes in, the front of the ship pushes forward. It actually draws the water up behind it, so the water goes away as it draws in front of the ship, and then when it comes when the ship passes, all the water comes back. So if you're down by the water, which I've done before, you got to be careful, because that surge comes back in and you get wet up to your knees. Well, every now and again you'll be fishing and you'll get something bigger than you expect. So I've got, this is probably about 6 kilo line or so, and I had a big hit on this, and whatever it was, I just basically couldn't stop, so it broke that line off. I'll just have to rebait up, but it's exciting every now and again to get something like that, but it just would have been wonderful to get it in. The tide is going out, and the fish are using the tide to create resistance, so this small stuff feels like a marlin. What I recommend when you come to places like this is to carry 2 rods. Be able to cast further out and closer in. You want to be able to get out into the deep water just to test what's out there, and then you also want to be in the shallower water, because sometimes when the tide is high, the fish can come in closer to shore. There's areas they can feed that they can't when the water's low. So you want to be able to catch some of those fish that come in, because sometimes quite large fish come in, and you have a chance to catch everything. The other thing you can do also is to have 2 different types of gear. You can have the heavy gear to catch larger fish with bigger hooks, lighter gear for the smaller fish, because there's always more small fish than there are large fish. It's worth it. more of these smaller fish. I'll bet this one straight back, but it's hard to get through to the larger ones. I'd love to catch that one that got away. The burl is really starting to do its job, and I'm getting bites pretty quickly. But the prawns I was using, which the fish love, were coming off straight away. I've converted to the spicy chicken. You know, chicken, that texture can stay on the hook a bit better. If you're interested in the formula for the spicy chicken, it's on my website, howtofish.com.au. But the chicken has got a better consistency and can be a lot tougher, firmer flesh, and it's staying on the hook much better, which is getting me a chance to actually hook some fish rather than lose them. Now what I'm finding is there's a bit of weed out there as well as rocks and everything else. So sometimes what will happen is you'll get some bites and then everything stops. You have to check your bait because sometimes that will be taken, but sometimes the bait just gets pulled into weed and the fish can't find it, or it's just too much hard work. So unfortunately this is one of those occasions when you've got to be checking your baits for a whole heap of things that will happen. There's also crabs out there that will eventually sort of nibble on it, and you never know what's happening with them because you can't see any action on your rod tip. So you have to keep active with this stuff. It's not just a matter of casting in and waiting forever, because you know you could be waiting there for half an hour and 5 minutes after your cast you actually lost your bait, or it was pulled into the weed, or a crab's munching on it. So just keep working and make sure you have a range of baits, because I'm finding that, you know, things aren't staying on the hook unless I get the tougher baits to do that. Okay, this is another good example about the weed that's coming in. This little guy pulled me into the weed. So the thing is, that's what's happening. This little tiny pinky here just went straight into the weed for cover, which means then that if he'd pulled that in and not been hooked, probably the bait would have been in the weed and I wouldn't have got a fish. I'm casting in a bit shallower than where I've been casting to. I'm trying to get into, say, maybe some of the bigger fish. So I've got a target spot. I'm just a bit shorter of that. Hope. Okay, well, that'll teach me, won't it? Okay, a little bit bigger than the others, so cast in a bit short of the range, where I think if all of the small ones around the burley and that the bigger, wiser ones might be holding off a bit. This one obviously was. As you can see, they're taking into the weeds all the time. So sometimes you feel like you've got something much bigger, but it's just because you're fighting everything. And you may notice that I'm winding very, very fast. I'm trying to keep this above the rocks and above the weed with a long rod, which keeps a lot of line out of the water. And I think that's the way you've got to fish here. Well, none of the fish have been big, but this time it was a little brim. There you go. I'd love to get your feedback on some of the best baits you've found in when you're fishing the estuaries, What are your go-to baits you find are most successful? Today, certainly the prawns have been great, but they come off so quickly. The chicken has been very good because it stays on. Pinkies came straight off. And I also did have some maggots which I put on there, which surprisingly are quite tough, but they only really worked when I actually dabbed them in the spicy chicken formula that I've got, the sauce that I've got, and that made the difference. But look, I'd love to know what you find your go-to baits are. Yet another little pinky, and look, I put them all back, and a lot of people say, oh, you're only catching small fish. Well, look, for me, half the fun is actually catching fish when I go fishing. Yes, it's great to catch the big ones. I would have loved to have got that big one I lost, but it's still, how much fun can you have, you know, when you're actually out there and there's some action happening? Better than just sitting there, I think, and just watching the water. So this is the way I like to fish. And let me know whether, is that what you like to do? Do you like to catch fish, or does it have to be the big one? It'd be really interesting to know who's interested in just catching fish, you know, for the sport, and who needs to have that great big one that can feed a family of 12. Wow, there are just so many of these out there. Well, I'm going to call it quits for today. I'm running out of burley. The wind is picking up, and I think the rain's going to come through. And look, if you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And for any information on the gear and burley and everything else, go to my website, howtofish.com.au.